Hello and welcome to the Business News, brought to you by Blytheway. I'm Charlie Gibson. Now, for those resource investors of you out there, you can't help but have noticed gold going through that all-important $1,400 an ounce level. And what does it mean? Well, it means an awful lot of things to an awful lot of companies. Now, one of them, in this particular case, has been able to do that rarest of things. It has raised, in this case, £4 million. Now, that in itself is not rare, but what it was able to do, it was able to raise that money at a share price that was above the recent trading range of the shares. So let's find out more about this particular company, what it's doing, where it's going. The company in question, in this particular case, is Condor Gold. And joining me all the way from the capital of Nicaragua, Managua, is its chairman and chief executive, Mark Child. Mark, very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Pleasure. Good to talk to you again, Charlie.
Just for those viewers who are not familiar with Condor Gold, could you give us the background to the company and just about its projects and where you are in the development profile, if you like, where you hope to get to and by what time?
Yes, certainly. Well, we've been operating in Nicaragua for 12 years now. There's a total of 80,000 meters of drilling on the project. We've got 2.4 million ounces of gold. We've invested over an 8-9 year period about $60 million in the country. We've gone through the pre-feasibility study stage, so we have reserves. And then we've been through a 3-year permitting process. And in last August, we're permitted to construct and operate a processing plant for 2,800 tons a day. And that's about between 80 to 100,000 ounces of gold a year. We're permitted to produce out of a single pit. And we're looking to expand that production. So that's our sort of base case. So we're really advanced. We've got the permits and we've got a number of studies to do now before we can start construction.
So tell us, I presume that the proceeds of this placing that you did, that you announced today, go towards those studies that you were talking about. Can you just tell us a little bit about what they call the application of funds?
Yes, certainly. I would just say, in terms of the application, we need to buy the land for the mine site infrastructure. So we've tied a lot of that down. We own about 600 hectares of land in Nicaragua around the mine site. So we've been buying that. We've also tied some down under option agreement. So we'll be using quite a reasonable slug of that to buy all the mine site infrastructure, which will run to several hundred hectares of land. Additionally, we have to buy. We have to do the technical engineering studies for the ministry that have to sign off on certain studies before we start construction. So, for example, there's hydrology, surface water studies we have to do, tailing storage facility studies. There are 10 major studies we've got, they're fully engineered, so that the project then becomes shovel ready, as the Aussies say, so we can actually start construction.
You use that term shovel ready. I'm familiar with the Australians using it. I'm familiar with the Canadians using it as well. Quite often they use it when they're trying to sell a project, if you like, in a pre-production state, and they describe something as being shovel ready. Would that be a route you're looking to go down in order to, if you like, to give investors an exit from their investment, or are you looking to develop it yourself?
The company we run to take it through to production. I think the best way to sell a company is to completely de-risk it. In that sense, a de-risk is to just have it as a turnkey operation. The land's all bought, people don't have to bother with that, and all the conditions of the permit which the ministry set are all met. For example, we have people up at the moment doing a forestry inventory in Nicaragua. So we'll run a twin approach. And of course, it all depends on the market. If the gold gets a bid, and you mentioned it's broke out now, there's a lot more interest coming back into the sector. And we're listed, so we could well get a knock on the door by somebody looking to build the next gold mine.
Mark, just describe to us what the project looks like. I know you told us what the company does, if you like, but in terms of its size, its duration, its NPV, capex, cash costs, those sort of things, what does it look like?
Well, we've been gradually picking up concessions around an old mining district, and we were granted last week an additional 130 odd square kilometers. So we're now up over about 530 square kilometers of subsurface mineral rights. And I just encourage readers to have a look at that announcement. So it shows the government's permitting, and the permits give you a permit to explore and exploit or extract the gold. We think we're sitting on a major gold district. So we are not just 2.4 million ounces, but we can take it to 5 quite comfortably. That's what our geologists think. And to prove that, we've flown it with helicopter-borne geophysics, we've done soil geochemistry, we've done structural geological mapping. So in this down cycle, we've quietly gone about, and this does take time. It takes a couple of years to complete these detailed soil geochemistry and get people to map these things to show major gold districts. And we think that creates a massive catalyst and valuation for the share price in due course. It hasn't come through, of course, recently because we've been in a bear market up until recently in gold exploration. In terms of the costs, we are on the reserve numbers, we're $700 an ounce all in sustaining. So half the current gold price is our break-even all in sustaining cash costs. So if you think of that and just our base case, we produce 100,000 ounces of gold, there should be $70 million free cash flow coming out of that. So that's lower quartile and makes the project, I think it stands out because we got an average grade of 4 grams, which is super high grade, really. And parts of that are 8 grams. The feeder pits we announced in January this year, which the market chose to ignore, we had 120,000 ounces at 8.4 grams in a feeder pit in January. The share price went down. So, we've got a brilliant project, very high grade, highly economic. We've got a NPV on 4 different scenarios. The average NPV is about 190 million US, compared to the market cap of, say, 22, or maybe after this 25, 26 million US. So the price to book ratio is about 0.12. The ounces in the ground is about $9 an ounce in the ground. And this is almost at distress levels. I mean, I think it offers investors at this point an incredible value.
I'll give you a bit of latitude here, but in terms of timelines, if you were to move as fast as possible, when do you think you could see first gold produced?
Fast as possible would be 18 months. The caveat to that is if we were able to get into a toll refining agreement. So there's 2 producing mines within trucking distance of us. One of them is called La Libertad, owned by B2Gold, and incidentally, B2Gold, a company called Calibre Mining that operates in Nicaragua, put out an announcement last week to buy B2Gold's mines for $100 million US. I've been up to both of those mines over the years, and one actually this year, La Libertad, and we could truck ore because we have a permitted pit. So we're permitted to produce 600,000 ounces of our base case. So what we can actually do is take some of that to La Libertad or El Limon. We are under CA with B2Gold, so I've got to be a bit careful about that. But I've made no secret of my desire to enter cash flow early, to answer your question. So if we signed an agreement to toll refine, that is something which we could be producing in 4 months, because all we got to do is mine it. We've done all the studies. We contract mine it, contract miners do it, contract explosive, contract trucking. So it becomes a virtual operation. All we got to do is buy a bit of land. We've got money for that now. And then we could truck it over and have a revenue sharing agreement with La Libertad, for example. But I caveat, it takes 2 people to do a deal. We're keen to do a deal, and maybe after this announcement last week, we now know why B2Gold have been stalling, if you like, because they've sold the business, or they retain 31% of the business, but possibly those conversations can continue in earnest. But it depends what the other side want to do.
You did make some play in this morning's announcement about a new shareholder. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, certainly. The Nicaraguan milling company putting in 2 million sterling. That is controlled by a friend of mine called Randy Martin. He's a mining engineer. I met him when I first came to Nicaragua 14 years ago. He operated the Libertad mine that I just mentioned with B2 Gold. He built that 20 plus years ago under RNC Gold. He then went on, sold that to Yamana Gold. He then went on to the Bonanza mine in Nicaragua, which last year produced over 100,000 ounces of gold. That was sold for about 96 million US dollars, and 90% was sold for that. But that's out on the Caribbean coast. I've flown up to that as well about 5 years ago. And so he's very experienced, and his team are very experienced. They've built 4 mines in Central South America. And they realize the project that we've got, they're very familiar. They've done their technical due diligence, if you like. He's in Managua. I came down the flight with him yesterday, actually, from Miami to Nicaragua. We're meeting later today and this week, and we'll be discussing what synergies we can do together. But they've got a small mill called Plantel Los Angeles in Nicaragua that toll refines about 200 tons a day of artisanal miner ore up near La Libertad area. So I think there's a few sort of synergies with us, and that's what I'll be discussing those this week as our new shareholder.
I made mention, Mark, at the start of the interview, that the price at which you were able to get your placing away, and the fact that it was at a premium to your recent trading range, if you like. Is that a function? Is that, in your opinion, does that reflect shareholders' confidence in the project, or does it reflect the fact that gold's at 1,400, or is it a bit of both?
I think the main shareholders who really know this company, and I should just say, of the 4 million, none of it's come from our broker Numis. I've got all the money in, so it's people I've known and that's come in. Jim Mellon is a director. He's been to site. He's a very astute investor, as we all know, and he offered to put in 1.25 million, and the board, at a premium. And then I went to Ross Beatty, and he said yes. I think for the sort of medium, longer term shareholders, the fact they know the share price is a bit distressed because there's been a couple of sellers. We had City Financial liquidated a position on us. We've had about 10% of the shares sold in the market this year through no fault of our own, if you like, people just getting out. It's a classic bottom of the market cycle. So Jim came in, offered a premium, and we built the book, if you like, around him. And Ross came in, and then I went to Nicaraguan milling company, people I know, and they said, "Yeah, it's so cheap. We're coming in at this level, and we want to help you progress the project."
Quite a stamp of approval, though. It's not,
yes, it is.
Not many companies can do that.
Yeah, and by people who really know the asset. It's not. This is. People should take huge comfort from this. Everyone's been to site or sent their expert to site who's come in a major way here. And the directors, I'm putting money in. Andrew Cheetle, a fellow director, is putting money in. The CFO is putting money in. There's a support from the board throughout the 4 directors and the CFO. Plus, our 2 major shareholders. Jim Mellon now goes up to 15%. Ross Beatty maintains his 7% shareholding, and we have a new shareholder who understands the asset and has followed it for years. So it's a big vote of confidence.
Mark, on that note, thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but we wish you the very best of luck, and we look forward to talking to you about your project, in the near future, when some of those things that you've mentioned begin to come to fruition. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mark Child there, the Chairman and Chief Executive of Condor Gold, speaking to me from his hotel room in Managua in Nicaragua. So right on the action, close to the action, if you like. I'm afraid, as I say, that's all we got time for today on the Business News, brought to you by Blytheway. I'm Charlie Gibson. We'll be looking to bring you more such investment opportunities in the very near future. But until then, you have a very capital day.